Hello. Now that I've got an area where I can compost the rest of the weeds from the allotment, it's time to clear a bit more ground and build some beds so that I can plant some crops. The birds and the slugs have beaten me to most of the fruit so far, but there's a couple that either they've had enough or they haven't got around to it, or they're so sick of eating everybody else's they've had enough. A couple of strawberries. Tried this blackcurrant, they're still not quite ready yet, and yes, I know it's got bindweed on it. The raspberries, if I don't take this today, the birds will get it. Something's got this one well. So, not much of a harvest, but at least it's a start. Here is a settlement map of the allotments. I'm working in this area of the plot, in front of the shed. Yeah, as I'm going through clearing the patch, got one bin for rubbish, one bin for all the weeds, and then the wheelbarrow for all the bits of grass and crud that's going in the compost. This is going in the weed barrel, so it's got things like nettles and dandelions, and that got just things like bindweed that I don't want in the compost heap or anywhere near it, so that just gets thrown away. And any plants I managed to find that I want to keep, I'm putting them in pots, and then I'll place them where I want them. What I'm doing with the grass is I'm lifting the turf, shaking as much of the loose soil as I can, and the rest of it is going in this bag, and I'll leave it to sort of rot down over winter, and then I can put it through a sieve, take the soil, and the grass will have just disappeared into compost over the next few months. So I'll have some good soil to use next year for the raised beds. It's a laborious and time-consuming job to dig everything out of this hard clay soil by hand and to separate all these things into different parts, but it's the best way to avoid throwing out nutrients and to be able to return the goodness back into the soil. Now let's take a look at the raspberry patch and the big composter. Now I've pulled all the thistles and dropped them at the base of the raspberry plants so they'll dry out and provide a bit of mulch. And what I'm going to do is, where there are big gaps, I will go and plant some annuals in between them, something like pumpkins or something, to fill up those spaces and keep any weeds down until we can move some of these berry bushes in the autumn and get these regularly spaced, because sometimes they're very close together, other places there's huge gaps, because the raspberry runners have been allowed to run wild and sort of pop up here, there and everywhere, and so it's gone a bit crazy with spacing. The world's ugliest compost bin is handy over there, because I can just take all the weeds from the raspberry patch and put them straight into the compost bin. There was quite a lot of weeds around the roses, and once that was cleared, I could start marking out the beds. What I'm going to do with this pile of grass, which is mainly grass with roots and a little bit of soil, is as I clear it, the bits that are sort of matted together, I'm sticking in there, but what I'm going to do is add them to this compost heap, and because that's going down quite a bit, all this stable sweepings and weeds etc. that is in here, plus the grass roots and a little bit of soil that's stuck to the grass roots, it will all sort of rot down here into a nice little compost and soil mixture. This raised bed is completely buried more or less, and I bet it's all rotten wood. What's the point of making these tiny little things that either make a proper raised bed or don't bother? Because what's the point of these tiny little ones? Here is the rough layout of how I want the allotment to look. The beds are on either side of the central path, and as you stand at the front and look towards the back, they are numbered going from L1 to L9 on the left and R1 to R14 on the right. L1 is the strawberry bed that I've already built. On the front left is a large area which will be covered in wood chips and become a permanent seating area, and also some plants grown in containers. I'm leaving 5 meters from the shed, including 1 meter for the strawberry bed, before the next bed. I chose this distance so that the roses end up in the middle of the 4th bed. I have already brought in some wood chips to cover the seating area, plus some extra for the paths between the beds. Stake it, mark it, hold it, check, 5 meters, spot on. Now, the bed is going to be 1.5 meters wide, so go 6.5 meters. Marker. Then path is 50 centimeters, so 7 meters, 7 meters. Another one, 1.5 meters, so that takes us to 8.5 meters. So 9 meters. And this raised bed would be up to 1.5 meters. Now I repeat the process on the other side, and then we'll put the beds together. In the next video I shall get on with planting some crops in the beds that I've just cleared. So goodbye for now, and come back soon.